Okay, the purpose of this video is to show how to Kitchener our sock. This is our spiral staircase lace sock. I'm to the last row of decreases, and I wanted to show you how to do it on sock size needle and sock yarn, as well as bigger yarn. Now, sock width, this is a sport weight, and she uses a worsted and a contrast color. We have just a little bit different technique in sliding the stitches off. When you come to something as small as sock needles, I prefer not sliding the two stitches to the end as she does, and then taking one off. I take one off and then hold the other one on. So Kitchener was invented by a man, and his last name was Kitchener, so that's where it comes from. Grafting or doing this Kitchener stitch can be used on a variety of things, not just closing a toe. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we have a nice long stretch of yarn. You need a pretty long stretch to go through all these stitches. And I've just knit up a couple of swatches here. First thing we're going to do is go through as if to purl on the first needle, and then on the back needle we're going to go through the front. Okay, that locks everything into place. One of the most important things is to keep this yarn, the working yarn, underneath the two needles. When I took a private lesson to learn that, that is what cleared up the whole thing for me when I was trying to figure it out from diagrams. Back then, we didn't have online videos. Okay, so now we're ready to go through knitwise. I call that knit off, and then we're going through the second stitch purlwise. Okay, the back stitch we're going through purlwise. Hold on to that one on the front. I take it off, and then I go through the second one knitwise. Okay, you knit off, purl on. It's my little short mnemonic. Okay, these yarns won't be in the way when we do the toe. You purl on, purl off, and knit on. Keep that yarn underneath. Knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. There was a woman who had several socks knit up except for closing the toe, and that little short hand mnemonic helped her immensely. So you knit off, purl on. See there, I got my yarn above. Purl off, knit on. Okay, I'm just going to do one more, and you should be able to see the effect. And then we'll go to our toe. I think you can see there how nicely these stitches are lining up. Okay, here is the toe on the original staircase sock. You can see how nicely grafted those stitches are. My sock I'm going to be demonstrating on, the yarn has been reworked a little bit, so the stitches are not going to be quite as nice. I apologize for that. Okay, the decreases have been worked on. My particular sock, we decreased down to 18. First going every other row to 18, and then every row after that. 8 is not a magic number. I have 10 on here. I'm going to work one more row of decreases. But it depends on the size and the personal preference of the designer. I don't like a really wide toe, so I go to 8. For my son who wears a size 13, I use 12 stitches. Some people go down to 6. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the last decrease. Okay, that was an SSK there. The stitches were already turned for me. Knit 2 together. I'm just going to turn these couple of stitches. Okay, what I wanted to show you was how to keep from getting a gap right here. You can see how it's nice and tightly closed. So how you do that is you bring this needle under. Your first stitch is knit tightly, as is your decrease. You do a slip, slip, knit there. You should be good at that by now. And knit 2. Okay, we knit 2 from the last needle and knit 2 together. When you're at the very end here, it gets a little fiddly and tight, so you just want to be really careful to maintain control. Okay, so there we've done our last row of decreases. We should have 8 on the front needle, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 4 on each of needle 2 and needle 3, which we have. We want to make sure that number is equal before we start our Kitchener. Okay, now we want to transfer very carefully the stitches from 2 to 3 or 3 to 2. You just want to combine these so you have 8 on one needle. Now you'll see that we have our stitches side by side, our needles are parallel, and that's the position you need to have before you do your Kitchener. Then you want to cut a nice long tail off of about 12 inches. You'll need a tapestry needle, not a pointed needle for this. And then I like to lock it by going through the first stitch on the first needle purlwise and the back needle knitwise through the front. If you want to see a video in color yarn contrast, Knitwit has a good video. The only thing is you can't see the final stitches because it's in dark yarn. And we differ on how we pull off the stitches. Okay, I pull off one. I go through as if to knit. And then I go through the second stitch, which stays on. I do it purlwise. Okay, on the back needle, I pull off this first stitch purlwise, and I go through the second stitch on the back needle through the front or knitwise. Okay, I have this working yarn below. I go through this one knitwise, the second purlwise, purlwise, and knitwise. Okay, you want to make sure your stitches are equal. An easy way to remember is knit off, hold these on the back, purl on, purl off, knit on, knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. If you want to, write that down for yourself. See how those stitches are lining up there? Knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on, knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. Okay, when you get to the end here, you want to really watch that. I got a split stitch there, so knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. Finally, the last one you do as normal. You knit through this one knitwise, and you slide through that one purlwise. And then to get rid of this little taggy yarn here, I just go through here, reach up inside the sock and pull it through. Okay, this yarn has been reworked a couple times, but let's see how we did. Stitches are a little bit big, but you can see how they line up in rows. As this is worn and washed, it'll line up as nicely as that, although there is a little bit of difference in the yarn quality. That's the Kitchener.